Hey guys, I'm IzDaisho, and look what screen we're on now. You know what that means. It is time for a new in-depth guide. And I know I don't have such a cool name like Sexy60, maybe I'm not as cool as WMG, but I do have this Strength of Stone deck here today, and I am here to show you how I use it. Now first I'm going to go through the cards that I have in the deck, and then I'm going to tell you why I don't have the other cards in the deck. Alright, this guy is it's called Assault Strobe. Target creature gains double strike until the end of turn. And this card isn't great. It's not my favorite card. It's a sorcery, but it gives your card double strike. So, I mean, double strike is a really amazing ability, and the fact that you can give it to him for one cost isn't bad. I mean, it is a sorcery, and they'll just know to chump block it, but that basically just means that you can get rid of one creature on the board. It's not always going to be useful, but it is sometimes. Plus, you have to take into account that you have some Mountain Walk and some Forest Walk, so if you put it on one of those creatures, then you'll pretty much get in for free no matter what. So that's basically why I have this card in the deck. If there was some amazing card that wasn't in the deck, then I would put it in, but there isn't. Darksteel Axe is alright. It's indestructible. Most people don't run the artifact destruction anyway, and also the white deck's artifact destruction is it says exile, so that means that this still would die, because indestructible just means that it can't be destroyed. So if the card text says destroy, then it wouldn't kill it. But it gives your creature +2/+0. It's really important to have these pump cards in the deck, and you're gonna see that I pretty much left them all in. Goblin Mountaineer is a 1/1 with Mountain Walk. Not bad. Yeah, there's 3 of them in the deck, and I didn't feel like taking any of them out because they're good 1-drops, and I mean I would prefer them to be like 2/1s without Mountain Walk, but still. Grim Lavamancer is actually a pretty decent card, and it's also just a 1/1 drop, but its ability is exile 2 cards from your graveyard, and it deals 2 damage to target creature or player. So that means that basically if you have two cards in your graveyard, then you can just shock someone whenever you want to. You just have to throw away those 2 cards, and then it's no big deal. Since no cards get brought back from your graveyard anyway, it really makes no difference if you exile them or if they're in your graveyard, so that's good. Orther says testicles. I'm glad that he showed that to you guys. Anyway, Spike Shot Elder is one of the best cards in the deck. You just have to tap 3 and Spike Shot Elder deals damage equal to its power to target creature or player. So right away it basically says 1 damage to target creature or player just tapping 3 mana. So that's really good, especially if you have a lot of mana out, then that'll work. But the best part about this card is that there's a lot of cards like Darksteel Axe and then Claws of Valkut and Volcanic Strength. I'll show you those cards later. But that make this guy stronger. So later on in the match, you might say tap 3 mana to deal 7 damage to target creature or player, and then that's when this card just goes insane and becomes an amazing card. So that's why he's in there. I wish there were more, but you can't get everything. And I don't know. I feel like this deck was built around this card, but the only problem is there's only 1 of him in the deck, so that really sucks. But anyway, Fault Line is a pretty decent card. I don't like it as much as the WMG guys like it. They were saying that this is one of the best cards in the deck, and I disagree. It deals damage to each creature and each player, each creature without flying. So none of your creatures have flying except for I think 1 or 2, and so basically this is going to deal damage to all your creatures. A lot of your creatures also have low toughness, like Spike Shot Elder and stuff. I mean, the Molten Ravagers have 4 toughness, but most of your creatures have low toughness. So you're basically saying you're going to end up killing yourself. It's still a really good card, though, because you can basically wipe out your entire opponent's board, so if you're in a bad position, then this is great. Plus, if you're just winning by 1 life, and you're both, if it's like 5-4, then this will come through in the clutch for you, something like that. But I don't love this card because it deals just as much to you as it does to them, and you're paying for it. So the only thing that you're really paying for is the time that it's going to be used. And while that's sometimes useful, I don't love this card, but it definitely makes the cut. So, I mean, it was never in danger of not making the cut, but it's not as good as other people say it is. At least I don't think so. Spitting Earth is just a great kill card. It deals damage equal to the number of mountains you control to target creature. So it just basically says kill whatever creature you want, as long as it's somewhat late in the game. I mean, like in the early game, it'll just kill whatever creature you want because you only have a couple of mountains out, but they only have a little bit of toughness. And then once they start playing creatures with some more toughness, then it still kills them because you have a lot of mountains out by then. Anyway, Volcanic Strength is a really, really good enchantment. In general, if your enchantment gives you plus X, where X is the cost, so this card costs 2 and it gives it +2/+2, that's actually pretty good. Plus the fact that it gives it Mountain Walk, it makes it even better. So it's probably one of the best ways to pump your creature. Of course, there are other ways that are better, as you'll see. Claws of Valkut is a better card, but this guy's only 2 costs, gives it +2/+2 in Mountain Walk. I love it. One of my favorite cards. Like, it's amazing to put on your Mountain Walk Goblin, even though it already has Mountain Walk. But you're never going to be playing against somebody who has mountains that you actually worry about. But I mean, Unquenchable Fire will just kill your Goblin Mountaineer when you play it, so it makes no difference. But anyway, this card becomes a 3/3, and you're swinging in for 3 turn 2 if you have this card on it, and then that's pretty good. You got a 3/3 out on turn 2, even though it is 2 cards. So, but whatever, we'll move on. Acts of Treason, I was on the fence about these guys, and then as you saw in the last game that I uploaded, or in the last 2 games, I won both games because of Act of Treason. So many times your opponents count on 1 or 2 creatures to be able to block. Let's say they have 5 creatures, they're like, okay, well, maybe they'll kill one of my creatures, so I'll leave 2 creatures back to block. Then you just throw Spitting Earth and Act of Treason and then win the game that way. In addition, if you steal one of their strong creatures, then they're just really upset, because then they have to make the decision, do they want to kill their own creature or do they want to take the damage? And don't even, like, it's just absolutely nuts if you do this against Eldrazi's, but whatever. We won't get into that. Anyway, Claws of Valkut is one of the best cards in the deck. I love it. Enchanted creature gets +1/+0 for each mountain you control and has first strike. So +1/+0 is good, but usually it just means that they can just chump block it and kill it. But if it has first strike, then they can't do that. You throw this on the Goblin Mountaineer even, or Spike Shot Elder, and it just goes nuts. It becomes one of the best cards in the game. And there's 2 of them in the deck, so I'm happy about that. Then there's Koth's Courier, who is a 2/3 for 4 Forest Walk, 2/3 for 3 costs, so that's pretty much standard. We see that with Blind Phantasm? I feel like I always call that the wrong thing. Phantom Servant, maybe? No. Blind Servant? I don't know. There's a 2/3 illusion card that is just a 2/3 and it doesn't have anything, but this card has Forest Walk, so that's pretty useful. It'll work against the Elf deck and against Strength of Stone, and then if you just pump this guy to make him stronger, maybe give him Double Strike 1 turn, give him Volcanic Strength, it just becomes actually a pretty good creature. Molten Ravager is one of the best creatures in the deck. It basically is a 0/4, so that's great. I mean, it's not great to be a 0/4, but it has it can pump itself to become a lot stronger. So I mean, the card for the red, I mean, 4 toughness, that's already a pretty big deal. So that basically means that they're gonna have to block with 2 creatures unless they want to throw a really big creature at it, and they don't want to throw a good creature at it, because if you swing in with this guy before your main phase, then you'll have plenty of mana open. So they don't want to block with something good, because then that'll die. So this is definitely a really good card. And Rock Slide Elemental, like, I don't know why there isn't 4 of these in the deck, because this is pretty much the staple of your deck. If this guy gets out early, then there's a good chance you're going to win unless they take it out or something like that. So basically, it has first strike, which is, again, amazing. And whenever another creature dies, you can put a +1/+1 counter on it. So this basically changes the entire way your opponent plays. If you swing in for 1, even if they like, let's say you swing in, even with Grim Lavamancer, if you swing in with a 1/1, then they might be tempted not to block, because then you're just giving the power back to your first strike creature, and then it just gets stronger. And then if they have another creature with 1 toughness, then there's no way they're gonna block, because then your creature gets +2/+2, because it doesn't say whenever your creature dies or whenever their creature dies. It says whenever any creature dies. So that's pretty amazing. Volshock Heartstroker is pretty. It's a decent card. It gives your target creature +2/+0 when it enters the battlefield, and it's a 2/2. So it's basically Grizzle Heartstroker, and it's like, it's good. It's not great, because it's useful. Let's say you have 6 mana out, then it's really useful, because then you can just do it to Spike Shot Elder, and then he becomes really strong, and then you can use his ability. Or if you have Mountain Walk, then it's useful. Like, the only reason why I left this card in is because it's not too expensive and it still pumps your creatures, so I like that. Cerebral Eruption. Let's read this card together because it confuses me every time I play it. But target opponent reveals the top card of his or her library. Cerebral Eruption deals damage equal to the revealed card's converted mana cost to that player and each creature he controls. If it's a land card revealed that way, return it to its owner's hand. Most decks are pretty much 40% land, so that means that only a little over half the time will this card work. Only 60% of the time will this card actually do anything. But when it does something, it will save you 100% of the time. There's so many opportunities where it's just like, God damn it, I'm going to lose this game no matter what I do. Then you pick up this card and you're like, oh, that could work. And then you do it against the Eldrazi deck, and then they pick up an Eldrazi, and what does it do? Converted mana cost, and then it does 11 damage to everything it controls. What I love about this card is it's mass removal, but it doesn't deal anything to yourself. So most of the other mass removal cards in this deck, such as Fault Line, do damage to each creature and each player, including you. But this one only does it to his stuff, so that's what I love about this card. This is probably the best card in the deck. Hero of Oxid Ridge is just amazing. It's got Battlecry and Haste. It's a 4/2 for 4 cost. So right there, it's already better than Lightning Elemental in that it has 1 more toughness and it has Battlecry. And then its secondary ability is also amazing. Whenever it attacks, creatures with power 1 or less can't block. So that's, I mean, it just cripples so many creatures. There's so many creatures with power of 1 that sometimes would be useful. Like, let's say you don't necessarily want to swing in with a Goblin. Is that what they're called? Goblin Mountaineer? You don't want to swing in with a Goblin Mountaineer, but then you can because their weak creatures can't even block you. So it's just a really, really good card. This card is alright. It basically just made the cut, in my opinion. It's a 4-drop, which is good, because its ability says at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, if that player has 2 or fewer cards, it deals 3 damage to him or her. So that's really good. The only problem is usually they'll have more, but if you get down to later on in the game, then you might have more of an opportunity for them to have lower cards, and then you start playing this card, and then they have to worry about it. It's not necessarily that they'll do damage, but it makes them not want to play their creatures. This card is it's a 4-cost 3/3, so when it's on the field, it's decent. It's not great, but it destroys an artifact when it comes in, and it's always good to have artifact destruction, because there's a lot of decks that run artifact. If you're playing against the artifact deck, it's just a kill card, and it's amazing, because it's a kill card plus it's a 3/3 creature for 4 costs, which is an outstanding deal. It's great against the Wielding Steel deck, because you can just kill their best artifact, and then they're just screwed because they don't have any good equipment anymore. So this card is really useful sometimes, but not all the time. Either way, I don't mind keeping it in because it's still a 3/3 at the end of the day, so it's not the worst thing in the world. This card is a pretty good card. It's like Drawn, just worse. It says target creature gets +1, -1 until end of turn. So basically, you can just use this card to pump itself, and then it could become a 7/1 if you need to, or you can just use it to kill creatures with low toughness. It'll cost you 4 mana to kill a creature with 2 toughness, so it's pretty expensive, but it's still definitely good enough to make the cut, and it's only a 5 cost. Spike Barrage is Spire Barrage. I don't know why I always call this card Spike Barrage, but it deals damage equal to the number of mountains you control to target creature or player. It's so useful. It's always going to do at least 5 damage to a creature or player, so that's amazing. It'll save you so much, plus it's removal, and this deck doesn't have all that much removal. But anyway, Conquering Manticore is a really good card. It's 6 costs for a 5/5 flyer, which is already an amazing deal. And then it also has Active Treason on it. So it's basically, it's an Act of Treason, and then you pay 3 more for a 5/5 flyer. So I love this card, and it's one of my favorites. So now let's go on to this top part. Golden Urn. First of all, it's a life gain artifact, so you don't really want it in your deck. Second of all, it's not good in this deck because this deck doesn't really want to play really slowly the way I have it set up. If you set it up differently, you could have it go slowly, but I don't like doing that in this format because I know that this deck isn't the strongest late game, so I don't like to have it. But either way, if you play this card turn 1, it's really not bad because basically it says however long the game goes, that's how much life you gain. But usually it won't help you out. This card is 4 costs for a 3/2 haste, so it's not the greatest card. Generally, they'll just be able to block it with a card with 2 power, because 2 power is really it's really not that much, and a lot of creatures have it, so they'll just be able to kill this guy right away. Then I left out all these 4/5 dudes. I left all of them out. they're really bulky, and while Tarafa is actually a really good card, I just feel like it's too bulky for this deck. And the way I have it set up here, I'll show you the deck stats. There's only 4 cards with 5 or more mana cost. I like the fact that they're all 1, 2, and 3 drops, and then it kind of like drops off at the end, and there's only a few 4, 5, and 6 drops. But so I really don't like having any of these bulky cards, and that's why they're out. This is just a 4/5, so obviously this isn't going to go in. This card is amazing. Whenever a creature is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to that creature. So basically, in order to kill this card, it has to do 5 damage to it. So unless it has more than 9 toughness, this card basically says it has Death Touch. Then it also says whenever a spell deals damage to it, it deals that much damage to that creature's controller. So in general, that's good. But since we're playing this format, there aren't that many things that do 5 damage. Like, nobody's gonna use a blaze on a 5 toughness creature, but basically this just says you're definitely not gonna use it. But anyway, let's move on to Magma Phoenix. Magma Phoenix, I really don't like it. It's a 3/3 flyer for 5, and obviously that's not why it's a rare card and not why it's a good card. It's a good card because it deals 3 damage to each creature and each player when it dies. The thing that I hate about this card is they get to decide when it dies. Generally, I mean, so basically it's the opposite of Fault Line. What I said about Fault Line that I loved so much is that you get to decide. You cast the spell, so you get to decide when it happens. But once you cast Magma Phoenix, once it's on the table, they can Volchammer it whenever they want. They can go for the throat it whenever they want. They can Urge Defeat it whenever they want. They get to choose when to kill it. So if it's beneficial for them to take out everything, then they'll do it. If not, then they won't do it. And then again, at the end of the day, it still is a 3/3 flyer for 5 costs, which isn't the worst thing in the world, and I might pay for it if I needed to, but I don't necessarily like it in the deck. Then its secondary ability is play 5 to return it to your hand. I completely think that's useless because, all right, so you cast this spell for 5. Then they kill it the next turn, just say that happens. So then you have to spend an entire another turn to get this back. You can't do anything. And then an entire another turn to cast it. And then they kill it again. So all you did was waste 3 turns and deal 3 damage to each player, and each creature and each player twice. I really don't like it. Earth Servant is such a bad card. It only has 4 in the front, and it's a 6 cost, and it has no other abilities other than its back gets huge. So it's always going to have 10 or 12 toughness, which means that sometimes it's a really good blocker. So it's basically just a really, really strong wall. If you get Claws of Valkut on it, then it's just a freaking beast, but either way, I don't like it. This card is a 6 cost for a 5/4 haste. It has to attack every turn. I'm not going to say that this is the worst card ever because it sometimes can win you the game if you have so much mana out, but I really don't like having such heavy creatures in the deck. And then there's this guy who costs 8, so there's no point in even discussing him. So if you'll notice, I left most of these deals damage to each creature and each player, which is one mechanic that I think that they were going for when they made this deck, but I just don't like that mechanic enough to keep it in. Anyway, I know that I really disagreed with WMG, but this is how I think this deck should be played. I'm not saying it's definitely the best way. This is just what I've come up with. I haven't experimented for hours and hours and hours, which I probably should have before I actually made this video. But I did do some testing with each way, and I feel like this is the best way to run it. But feel free to have your own opinion. Either way, I hope you guys all enjoyed this video, and have a wonderful day. Bye.